obstacles in my life has been run towards the fear. I never wanted to wake up one day and go, I wish I had, what if I had, I didn't want to have those regrets. You know, I don't want to have those regrets. So that continues to push me, you know. My mother, you know, she's late now, but she was a woman who did not fear life. Who at the end, well before she passed, was like, I'm good going. I've done everything that I want to do. If I left today, I would have no regrets. You know, that I've impacted somebody's life in some positive way. I've contributed something to the world. I've lived with joy. I live with grace. I live with
Hi guys, this is Marcia and Andre, and today we have Mr. Antonio David Lyons, a producer and actor based in Florida, who has had an illustrious acting career over the years. What's up, Wagwan?
Hello. How you doing?
Doing good. I'm good. A little tired. The gym. I just came from the gym, but I'm good. You know,
nice.
Work on.
And I'm here doing lockdown. So enjoying the time being locked down also here in Jamaica.
Oh yes, that's true. Them on the lockdown. So
yeah. Oh wait. So where are you guys?
So I am based in Saskatchewan, in Canada.
In Canada. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But Jamaican, born and bred, Montegonian, of course. Yeah. And Andre.
And I'm in Kingston. Jamaica.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. I'm in Los Angeles, California at the moment.
Oh, you're in LA.
I was born and raised in Hollywood, Florida. My father is Jamaican from St. Mary's. My mother's family is from the Bahamas. But you know, Florida where I grew up. And then would go to Jamaica to visit family and everything. And then and hopefully, God willing, I'll be there in December.
And then Florida is kind of like little Jamaica anyways, because it's a bunch of West Indians. Yeah.
Listen, the whole of the Caribbean.
That's
you know,
true.
and it was I didn't realize that Florida was unique in that way until I went to university. And because the neighborhood I grew up in, at the time it was called Carver Ranches. And it was like 90% of the people that lived there were of Bahamian descent.
Okay.
And then we had plenty of family like Fort Lauderdale on the Jamaican side and all this kind of things.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I went to university in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I went to Southern University.
Oh, I know Baton Rouge. I know that university.
Right?
Southern.
It was the first time that I was like immersed in African-American culture.
Oh.
And I was just like, meeting people that didn't know anything about the Caribbean, you know?
Okay.
So I was just like, wait, okay, this is Black America. You know?
Yeah.
I thought I was Black America, but I wasn't. I was actually Caribbean Black
America
in disguise or something.
I a few years ago, I spent 4.5 months in Baton Rouge. Grimy.
Why?
No.
Why?
I had a friend. My friend Andrea, who's a hairdresser in Baton Rouge, we were high school track mates. I used to do track. I don't do it anymore. And I was just visiting. I just moved from Japan briefly at the time. And I was in Florida, and then I decided to go and spend some time with her in Baton Rouge. I stayed there, and I went to the LSU campus a lot to watch track meets. And a couple of our clients went to Southern University to do nursing. So I met and I learned a lot about Baton Rouge. It's
Mardi Gras.
Yeah, that's
well, Mardi Gras, New Orleans.
It's more NOLA. Yeah. So I never got to go to New Orleans, sadly. Baton Rouge, though, it had like a lot of Caribbean people too, because they went to the university. After they get track scholarships, a lot of them go to LSU. So I met a lot of people who, they ran for the Guyana, or they ran for Trinidad, or ran for Jamaica or something there. So it wasn't super exciting, but it was good to go to track meets and those things. Yeah.
That's interesting that you talk about that, because that is the thing that got me through university. Because there was a community of Caribbean students, and also students from the continent, from Africa, who were like born and raised in different countries on the continent. And so we all shared some really basic similarities in terms of our upbringings and our value systems and culture and food. And between that and in my theater community, I ended up majoring in theater, like, because I don't know how I would have kind of not just survived, but acclimated to that space without having those touchstones, those places where you form a community that's familiar, you know, and like-minded people. Yeah, it was essential. And LSU, I went to LSU as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, LSU was really interesting. So Southern had a theater department, but LSU had a graduate theater department as well.
Oh, so you went to do your master's?
No, I didn't do my master's there. But what you could do in Louisiana is that you could cross-register. So you can be a student at one university, take classes at the other university, and right, and not have to pay extra or anything, be considered a student over there as well. Yeah, and so I was then able to take courses with graduate students, you know, as an undergrad person, and be eligible to be in shows with graduate students and not just undergraduates. So it accelerated my training in ways that if I was just in an all undergrad program, that I don't think would have happened.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think at my university, they call that like honors, if I'm not mistaken, where you can do some higher level courses even though you're doing your undergrad. I think it's called honors. So, you know, usually ask about your upbringing, but you basically tell us that, you grew up in Florida, where it's a melting pot of Caribbean people. But since you've touched on that, you even touched on going to school and whatnot, let us talk about your career, because you just spoke about theater. Why theater? Why?
There are people that choose careers, and then there are some people where careers choose you. You know, and theater was that thing for me. Acting was that thing for me. When I was growing up in Florida, I used to write a lot of poetry. I wrote a lot and I read a lot. That was like my thing. And I danced. I love dancing. Not like a trained dancer, but like, you put a song on.
Floor.
Exactly. You know how like it used to be, where it still is sort of, but like every new song that come out, there was a dance to go with it.
Exactly.
I knew that dance. So I would know that dance. And so in high school, I used to compete on the forensics team. So they had debate and they also had oral interpretation. And when I went to university, when I arrived in Baton Rouge, because as you know, it's nothing like South Florida.
True.
And I was like, my God.
It's kind of country, right?
It's kind of country.
And it's hood. and listen, kind of country and Baton Rouge, hood.
Yeah, it's a weird combination, you know what I mean? And there's industrial complexes around and chemical plants, and it's just, but either way. And I realized that if I didn't figure out some way to like leave that place at some points in time, I'm not gonna survive. And I ended up joining their debate team at the university. And one of the coaches for the non-debate stuff, for the oral interpretation stuff, was in the theater department. And she invited me to audition for a play that they were doing. And I auditioned for that play, and I really loved it. But aside from like just really loving it, I was really good at it. Yeah, but you know, I'm not sure, you know, because it wasn't me that said me is good. It's everybody else that was watching was like, oh my God.
You know, we just hear, you know that you have your Bahamian accent is a bit strong. I just heard a while ago. It just
flows. So that's all a conch, and more conch. So yeah, so that's what happened. So I auditioned for that show. I got into that show and then auditioned for another play. And I was cast in that play as well. And then I had to figure out the lie that I was going to tell my parents about changing my major because no respectable Caribbean person.
Your passion is not necessarily what they generally want you to do. Lawyer, doctor, you name it.
Teacher. What were you studying initially?
I was an econ major.
Oh.
I did that for a year.
I was an econ major, and then I was going to go to law school. That was the plan.
But I could see as a lawyer, though, you have that kind of aura about you.
That gravitas, like,
yes.
Okay.
Come on, let's bring a briefcase.
So I remember having a conversation with my mother in particular about, with a theater degree, I can always teach. I can, I had to be really clear about the possibilities of what I could do with this degree to take care of myself that would fit into her worldview.
Exactly.
Right? And so I changed my major to theater, going into my sophomore year. And then I just, and it was a great program because you're not just learning about acting, but you're also learning about scenic design and the production side of theater as well. So I felt like it really gave me a great foundation. Okay. And then, like I mentioned earlier, being able to go over to LSU to take these additional courses just really took things to a whole other level. Okay, nice. So
everybody has their first big break, right? So what was your first big break? Like, also, was it during school or after school? What was it like?
It was after school. It was after school. And it was a pretty major big break. My first professional acting job in film and television was as a guest star on New York Undercover.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it was a huge guest star role, and I was like the lead, and the whole episode surrounded my character. Nice. And it also was a moment where, all of the life experiences up until that moment had really prepared me for that job. The character was a Rwandan refugee, a child soldier. Oh. And even sort of developing ways of being and accent and everything. One of my closest friends growing up in Florida was Eddie Jean-Baptiste from IAT. And then, and then at Southern University, I had a professor for a year from Ghana. Oh. And then when this audition came up, I'm now living in New York City and had access to like the Schomburg and just the library and museum. And so when I started working on that accent, I was able to really marry Ghanaian accents and Haitian accents, and then our ways of being as African diaspora people that's a little different than Americans or North Americans, to really bring that character to life. And so that's what happened. That was my first big break. And I had no idea at the time like how big New York Undercover was. Mm-hmm. But after I did that show and it aired, I was like, like people were like, you're that guy from, and I was just like, wow. And that really set the stage.
So like how long did that actually last for? Like how long were you on New York Undercover for?
It was a guest star and we shot 8 days. Each episode, when you're doing episodic television, it's usually an 8-day shoot for each episode. So it was just those 8 days.
So was it just one episode or recurring?
It was just one episode that really opened up a lot of opportunities.
Doors for you.
Exposure.
So one of your most notable films is Hotel Rwanda, and I know about it. It's an older movie, but it's a very good movie. How did you get onto that?
Classic.
I auditioned.
Obviously, nobody. We not think them just say. We never think them just carve out it and be like, Antonio David, this role is for you. No, what did you do to stand out?
I'm just joking.
Who did you compete against? Blah blah blah.
I have no idea who all auditioned for that role. Mm-hmm. So New York Undercover was like late 90s, you know, kind of 96, 97, somewhere there. And I moved to LA like 98. And I worked a lot. And then by 2001, things started slowing down for me. Like, I don't know what was happening. Couldn't get no auditions, wasn't booking jobs. I mean, just dried up.
Yeah.
And I actually, what I realized later was that I started sliding into a depression. And I kind of got burned out over the industry, you know, and I left. There was something I noticed when I first moved to LA. I met these older brothers who are kind of like my age now, some a little older, and they'd be like, "Oh, what are you up to? And you know, where are you from? And everything." And I was like, "Oh, I'm doing this. I'm working on that." And and I noticed this thing. They would kind of glaze over, and they'd be kind of like, "Oh." And there was a bit of it seemed like a kind of bitterness in them about me working, you know. And I said to myself when I saw that thing, like, if I ever started to feel that way, I would leave. And I found myself feeling that way, you know. Brother friends of mine would be like, "Yo, I'm working on this thing. I've got this audition." And I was just like, "Good job." But inside,
you're burning, you're deep down.
You know what I mean? And so I was like, it's time to go. Like, I don't know how long I have to leave, but I have to leave. And there were 2 places I thought of going, both out of the country, because at the time I realized that if I stayed in the country, it would be more torturous for me, and not being able to
people are expecting you to, the expectation, like that's like one of the biggest issues that people tend to encounter, because you've been in one big project so far, so they expect you to continue doing so, and then by you not doing so, it'll weigh down on you with the expectations also.
Plus your own expectations of yourself, right?
That too, you know. And all my peers at the time, we were all sort of young Black Hollywood, like people doing really well. So I was in Bill Duke's first Actors Boot Camp, and in that class, it was me, it was Anthony Anderson, it was Victoria Platt, it was Shamar Moore, it was Taraji P. Henson. It was like, if you could think of people, Tempest Bledsoe from The Cosby Show, Kelly Williams. It was just, you know, and so I also didn't want to be like, oh, now I'm seeing my peers continue to move, right? And then I'd be like with this thing in my head, right? And so I looked at going to the UK, and I looked at going to Johannesburg. And both had been places that I visited and spent some time and really enjoyed being in those places. And I went back to visit the UK again. I was just like,
it's not for you.
Me can't bother with this weather. It was just like, it's too cold and gloomy. You can party and have a great time, but I was just like, it's gonna be too depressing. And I went back to South Africa, and I felt as equally invigorated by that space that I had the first time I went, you know. And it was a place that was like Black. It was so Black. I was like, I want to be around Black people. So I left in 2003, and I immigrated to Johannesburg. Yeah, and it took 2 years for me to figure out the move, like logistically, and also to do the spiritual work of letting go of my career as an actor, right? Because the only thing I'd ever done since I graduated university was act. And I didn't know what I would do to make a living in South Africa, but I knew I had to go. And so I went, and I stayed with some friends, and they were so generous. I actually stayed with them for like 9 months.
Oh, wow.
In South Africa when I first went there. But Hotel Rwanda happened when I first arrived. You know how you tell people you're going somewhere and they're like, oh, you should meet this person and that person and so on and so on. So friends did that. And so I started meeting these people, and then somebody mentioned about this project, Hotel Rwanda, and I was just like, okay, God, I don't know what kind of games you're playing right now.
That's the process.
Because I let go of this acting thing. It took 2 years.
It was following you.
Right? Exactly. 2 years. I let this thing go, and now I don't know what's going on. And I remember saying to God, I was just like, you know, when I got cast in that role, I was just like, I don't know what you're playing at, but if this is what you want me to do, obviously it's what you want me to do, but I'm not starting over. Like, you either put me where I was in my career in the US or someplace higher, but I'm not starting over. I was like, I'll do what you want me to do, but I can't start over. And I was invited to a party. It was an end-of-year party for a production company. While I was there, one of the producers who I'd met, who was a friend of a friend, introduces me to this guy and was like, hey, do you know Antonio Lyons? And Antonio, this is Terry George, and he's doing this film here called Hotel Rwanda. And the guy's like, hey, you know, and Terry George was the director for Hotel Rwanda.
Okay.
And he says, oh, have you heard about the project? And I lied and was like, no. And then he said, would you be interested in auditioning? I was like, sure, why not? You know, and I didn't have to say much. He was like, well, what are you doing here? I was like, just living, you know, because the producer ran down my entire resume. Okay. He was like, this is what you do. This is what he's done. And, you know, and I was just like, yeah, that's me. You know, because American History X had happened, and that had been like really huge, and all the other TV stuff and some of the film stuff I'd done as well. And so Terry says, well, can you come audition tomorrow with me and my assistant? And I said something that I never would have done when I was here in the US. And I said, no, I can't. I'm actually going to Vinda, which is an area in South Africa with some friends to visit for the weekend. He was like, whoa, well, here's my cell number, which never happens in LA. And he says, call me when you get back, and we'll set something up and come and meet.
Wow.
And so I went, had my long weekend, and I came back. I went to see him, auditioned, and I got the role.
Nice.
And that's how Rwanda happened. Yeah.
Listen to me, like oftentimes certain things might happen in life and we might question why it actually happened, but trust me, like when God has something planned for you, we just have to just trust the process and just go with the flow of things. Like we never know. Like we just have to just trust the process. You mentioned American History X. Looking back right now, I think I'm picturing the exact scene. But maybe you can just maybe you can just give us a quick idea of the scene that stood out the most for you in American History X.
The scene that stood out the most for me, there are two of them. My character's name is Lawrence, and Lawrence is the reason why Edward Norton's character Derek goes to jail. Yes. And so he murders my character. Yeah, he murders my character. But there were two moments. One, there's a moment on the basketball court, where it's like black guys playing these skinheads, and that's when all the beef really starts to happen. Exactly. And that altercation sort of sticks with me just because when we were shooting that, the energy that shows up in that scene was very real on the set. And not because those actors were racist, but because of their process. Like they stayed in character. So there was this tension, there was this distance.
It almost felt real. Okay.
That was necessary, I think, for this kind of project. It's necessary because usually like in between takes, it's just like, you know, actors tend to be pretty cordial with each other. And that wouldn't have been useful for this project. Definitely. This wasn't let's come make friends. This was let's
be real. Like that was the type of movie that definitely opened up a lot of person's eyes. Me myself, I can remember watching it, and trust me, that scene, like just talking to you right now, that scene just popped right back. Back.
Yeah. When I read that script, I was like, I need to be a part of this project because, I mean, I grew up. My mother's life work has been community development. You know what I mean? So I grew up in a space of watching people fight for Black people, right? Love on Black people.
Even to this day, man.
You know what I mean? And so when I read that script, what was important to me was that you never get a chance to understand how the racist becomes the racist. And I thought that was a really important story to be a part of telling, you know. Even in the discourse that we have now with all the stuff that's going on in the world You know, we still don't have that conversation. Like, how does the hate begin?
It's too
Exactly.
tense.
It
It's
starts
too
from somewhere.
tense because a lot of people who are racist, they think that they aren't, and then we have a lot of people that like to apologize for racist, and then it's one of those tense conversations that if we have it, it's gonna be too tense, and then if we have it, then you're gonna have too much contention. It's like, let us just not have the conversation at all. Or we have it now, and then it's like 9 days news. Like, it's so everybody's like fighting about racism now, and then next week we're smiling with Gucci or H&M. It doesn't last.
It's a very touchy subject. I can recall I went to school in Kentucky for a year, in Barberville, Kentucky. Not sure if you ever heard of that place before, but it's a very small Barberville.
In where?
Kentucky. Kentucky.
Oh, Kentucky. Oh, God.
Yeah, like, so Barberville was next door to this town called Corbin. They would tell you, don't go to this town if you're Black, especially at night, because you would literally be targeted if you go. So, like, this is something that's been going on for ages, and still is present. So a film like American History X, it definitely highlighted a lot of the injustice and just a lot of what's been going on. So
what it continues to go on, right?
Continues to go on, but that's the power of the art, right? Because the art can allow for the difficult conversation to happen.
Exactly.
Right? That people don't even know the conversation is happening to them and in them, because the art becomes a conduit. You know,
and that is why sometimes you have people, oh, you people keep having the same narratives in your movie. No, we need to have them because you guys won't stop. It's gonna continue. We need different voices to share them. So if we have people in the 70s, 60s, 80s, 90s, and it is something that is happening now, obviously the audience or the intended audience isn't listening or trying to change. So we keep having to target them and keep having to share our stories. So thank you for that movie.
Yeah.
That movie.
Thank you. And I believe that as well, you know, because even when watching, did you all watch Small Axe on Amazon?
No.
But I know Small Axe though.
You have to watch it. Like, you have to watch it. It's a series of short movies, not short films. Okay. Like, they're about 45 minutes long, a little shorter than full-length movies, but longer than a short film, right? And I had never seen Caribbean stories told so fully, so authentically, like Small Axe. It's all UK, Caribbean people in the UK, but they deal with some of the racism. They deal with some of the xenophobia. They deal with that. There's so much that comes up in those stories that are really critical, and it's through watching things like that you realize the continuity of the struggles, right? So, this thing was happening there at this time, and the same thing was happening over here. You know what I mean? That there's this connection, you know, that we can really lean into, and I think help to dismantle some of the problematic things that are going on.
It's like when last year during the pandemic, how Black Lives Matter connected to everyone. You had people in the Caribbean complaining about their struggles with injustices. You had people in the continent of Africa. You had people in the UK. You had people in the US.
Exactly.
So I can see how those films could, you know, like spread messages that, oh, this is not only unique to one particular group. It's something that exists in a number of groups, and these stories need to be told.
Yeah, no, it's essential. So that basketball scene was really important to me in American History X. And of course, you know, when I'm murdered, you know, was really important. And, you know, I've spoken about this before in different interviews, but, you know, people are like, what were you thinking? And the only thing that was going through my mind on repeat was, you can't kill us all. Can't kill us all. That was the thing that I locked into in that fight for my life, in that moment,
So that's definitely powerful, actually, what you shared about actually getting in character for that role. And what it's actually done for the viewers over the years. But currently, is there anything that you're working on right now that you can actually share?
As an actor, there isn't anything I'm working on right now. There was a project I was supposed to be shooting right now, but that project isn't happening anymore.
COVID?
Sorry?
Is it because of the pandemic?
I wish it had been because of the pandemic.
Because of the money?
But so that's a whole other conversation. We could be here for the next 2 hours trying to unpack what happened with that. But aside from being an actor, I write. So I'm writing a couple of projects that I'm writing at the moment. There's a theater piece called Crossing Rivers that I have been struggling with completing for the past 3 years that I'm continuing to journey with. It's a collaboration with Valerie J. Maynard, who's a prolific and very important visual artist in the U.S. There's a TV idea that I'm working with some people that's sort of centering women in politics and sort of global issues. I was telling Andre, we actually had a chat about this, that I'm finally looking at releasing a volume, a collection of poetry, which I've never done before. Most of my poetry has shown up either in plays or it's shown up in my music. I'm also a musician. This is the album cover from a project of mine called My Africa.
So are you a musician that sings or a musician that plays instrument?
It's really weird because it took a long time for me to not feel like a fraud with only a musician. I'm a composer, I'm a lyricist. My vocality is primarily poetry.
Oh, okay.
And I sing minimally.
So like a spoken word kind of person?
But better.
Hey.
But better. Like, I'm a storyteller. Like, like the spoken word thing, I never really
Are you like a Maya Angelou type? Kind of.
I like a Maya Angelou comparison with a Gil Scott-Heron situation with, like those spaces.
Okay.
So we released a remix EP that was out 2 months ago. It's in 2 parts. The second part has just dropped about 5 days ago. Nice. So that is called We Dance, We Pray. The first EP was with remixers primarily from the continent, Southern Africa. The second part is with a New York-based DJ producer called Casamena. So that's just come out. And that's kind of where I am at the moment, just really, as a lot of people have been using this time in the pandemic to just
definitely create, strengthen,
grow, ground,
broaden their horizons.
Yeah. Like, and I've also been like focused on family a lot. I'd started some years ago working on really understanding the fullness of the entirety of my family trees. Okay. And so that's been such a gifting journey. Particularly, well, on all the sides of my family, but most recently, particularly the Jamaican side, because we don't really think about it growing up, but all the immigration, people leaving the island, right? And the disconnections that happen in family and the disruptions that happen in family because of that, and people get lost, like whole branches of your tree are just gone.
Breaking off.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like the entire time I was growing up, I had no idea that my grandfather had siblings. Never crossed my mind.
Oh, thought he was an
right?
uncle.
So I come and find out that people are connected to me and only come to find out that like, oh, the only way they could be connected to me because it must be this guy's brother. You know?
Cousins and second cousins and yeah.
It's, I mean, like for instance, so growing up in Florida, there was a woman who was like a second mother to me, Sister Lynn. And she and my father were like this. And my parents got divorced, my father moved away, but my mother always carried me to see her on weekends. And I spent so much time with her and her kids and her grandkids, those that she had immigrated Jamaica to New York and then retired New York, Florida. But nobody ever tell me how they're related. Right?
Oh.
So I'm gonna say, oh, this is my father's cousin. So that's the guess.
Yeah.
And she was the daughter, she was like the granddaughter of my grandfather's brother.
So they're like first cousins.
You know what I mean? Like, but I was like, wait, hold on. So
too much
who else
confused. I don't even figure it out.
They make it seem like he's just a friend of the family, but it's actually a relative.
Like, yeah, but nobody ever talked about what the relationship was. You know, I got connected with, I did Ancestry as well. And so some hits came that way, and then we start talking and start trying to track how these things are and how we make these discoveries, right? And I, you know, Jamaica, they talk about outside children.
Yeah, bastard.
Happens a lot, yeah.
Right. So when I started doing my research, I started coming up with names that looked like they were attached to my grandfather.
Oh.
That were not one of the 7 or 8
kids
of his kids, my aunts and uncles that I knew.
Oh.
Right?
So your grandfather did have a sidey somewhere.
But hold on. Because a cousin was very easy to correct me on this, because I thought that her grandmother was an outside child. Okay. And she said to me, no, she was David's first child before he married your grandmother.
Oh.
So the two of them came with a picnic to the marriage.
Oh.
Right? There were others that were legitimately outside, but she was like his eldest child.
Okay.
Who I didn't know about.
Ah.
And it wasn't until I started doing the research and I go back to, I have two of my father's siblings who are still alive. And I said, hey, did David Lyons have these kids? And they said yes. They knew about them. They grew up with them, but nobody ever talked about them. Wow. At least to us, to the younger ones.
Here and there.
Yeah.
So, but the beautiful thing is that we had a family gathering. There were 50 devices on that call, on a Zoom call.
Oh, wow.
Most of those people, most of them didn't even know each other.
Never met.
Hadn't seen each other in a long time. They were in Canada. They were in Kenya. They were in the UK. They're all over Florida, Jamaica. You know, I am now connected with a first cousin, my uncle's son, and we never knew about each other. So that's been one of the beauties of this time, because you have the space to be like,
you have all the time to search.
And these platforms available and all this research, you know.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's really powerful. It's really powerful. So there's some trips I want to make to try to connect these other pieces. Because there were some people that ended up in Panama as well to work on the canal.
Oh.
Okay.
You know, you might find the same in your family as well.
Yeah, my family is scattered. UK, Florida. I have some here in Canada and Jamaica, but I'm sure they're in other places. But
yeah, man.
you know, not to cut you on that though, but throughout this interview, you touched on some of your struggles going through your acting career, just going through life. Now, what we want to know is what keeps you going. What do you live by, and what can you impart on future generations or persons who probably want to pursue something but fear struggles or think that it cannot happen at this point in their lives?
Or might want to get into acting like yourself.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it's all connected. So one of my guiding principles in my life has been run towards the fear. I never wanted to wake up one day and go, I wish I had, what if I had, I didn't want to have those regrets. You know, I don't want to have those regrets. So that continues to push me, you know. My mother, you know, she's late now, but she was a woman who did not fear life. Who at the end, well before she passed, was like, I'm good going. I've done everything that I wanted to do. If I left today, I would have no regrets. You know, that I've impacted somebody's life in some positive way. I've contributed something to the world. I've lived with joy. I live with grace. I live with God. And so that's foundational for me, you know. She also said something to me at one point when I was like in a very low place. You know, like sometimes you're in those places like, Mommy, can you pray for me? And she said, you can pray for yourself. I said, I can't pray for myself. She said, no, you can always pray for yourself. And so for me, that's always recognizing, you know, God's hand and the divinity within myself. To be able to call on everything that I need from God, from my ancestors, from my experiences, to go where I want to go. And that I'm responsible for my life. You know, so
that one is very important, that you're responsible for your life with the guidance of God.
Yeah, sometimes we want to make other people responsible for our dreams, for our lives. It's your life, it's your dream. Whether anybody says yes, whether they affirm it, whether they support you in it or not, it doesn't matter. You have to do that work because people are going to let you down. Because it's not their dream.
You're the captain of your ship.
And try not to die with your gift or your purpose. And as you said, you don't want to, what if I had done this? Do it. Yeah. You're here now, so you have the chance to do it. And throughout this interview, like, you've touched on so many gems along the way, and just you trusting the process. So you left, went to Africa, and then you got that big role. So it's just you trusting the process and trusting God. And trust me, like, persons can definitely learn a lot from you and learn a lot from hearing you speak. And we definitely want to say that we appreciate you taking the time out to actually come and share.
All the best in whatever you're doing now, because you mentioned something that you're doing aside from your acting career.
And we're looking forward to the poetry book.
Yeah, keep on going, and we appreciate you, and I'm sure your message will touch someone. And thank you so much.
Before I go, one last thing I want to say to you all as well. Thank you. You know, my Caribbean heritage, my Jamaicanness, my Bahamianness, the Americanness is, I don't know who I would be, you know, without those parts of myself. And to have an opportunity to be in conversation in community with people who are of my cultural origin, you know, and to share that with people of my cultural origin, it means a lot. You know, I don't get an opportunity to do it very often. And so I'm really grateful, very, very grateful.
Thank you so much. And that was wonderfully put. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And we just want you to have a blessed rest of your day, both you gentlemen. Walk good.
I'll stay locked down.
All right,
we're going to walk good, but you can't go to the Andreas.
No. All right.
All right.
Have a great one, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Blessings. All right.